Hello everyone, this is the first video in a series and I would like to talk about three key properties in RefreshUI. They are transform, size and pivot. First is transform. I have prepared scene with a sprite. As you can see, it has ordinary transform component. This is because in RefreshUI all UI elements are true 3D objects. So you don't need to learn anything special to place UI elements in a scene. Position, rotation, and scale work the way you expect it to work. But remember that only transform component can modify position, rotation, and scale directly. Next is size. It's obvious that every UI element and control has size. It is shown in the top of the inspector close to the transform component, because these are the properties that you will modify together most of the time. You could change width or height as you want anytime you want. Note that right now element grows in both directions. You might ask a question, is it possible to change this behavior? I want it to grow only in one direction. And the answer is yes. Pivot property is what you need. Before going forward, make sure that you have pivot mode enabled in Unity. If you have center enabled, then pivot will be shown in the center of the object. If you have pivot enabled, then arrows will be shown where the actual position of the object is. This is what we need. In fact, I would encourage you to always keep pivot mode even if you are not working with UI. One more thing to do is to switch current tool to move tool. This button is here. Right now you could see pivot point in the center of the element, and I have the same values in the pivot property. Let's move our element to the center of the screen. To do this, I set position to all zeros. Now what will happen if I change pivot point to the top left? Okay, now pivot point of the element, position of the element, is in top left corner. It might feel that element is moved, but it's not. We still have all zeros for position. What has changed is how element is displayed relative to the pivot point. I could try different values for pivot, but they will all only change how element is displayed relative to the pivot point. And finally, let's try to change size with different values for pivot property. What do you expect in this situation if I only change width? Okay, element only grows to the right. Why it happens this way? Remember that only transform can change position. On top of it, pivot property is set to left, so that the only possible way for element to change width, but stay aligned to the pivot point at the same time, is to grow to the right. It might feel a bit confusing at start, but I would say that this is the most straightforward and the easiest way to deal with pivot. Good thing about it is that you could imagine immediately how element will look like before you actually change pivot, and you don't need to use a lot of brain power to do so. These are three things that I wanted to show you today. I would also want to remind you that transform, size and pivot are completely independent in RefreshUI. They use each other as an input, but they do not interfere with each other. It means that when you modify transform, only position, rotation and scale are modified. When you modify size, only size is modified. And pivot property only defines how element is shown relative to the pivot point. This strict separation allows me to concentrate better and construct UI faster with less efforts, as there are no hidden indirect dependencies at all. If you want to know more about RefreshUI or download it and try yourself, please follow the link in the description. There is a demo scene that you could use as a starting point. That's it for today. See you in the next video.